Rengoku is one of my favorite characters in Demon Slayer, and I think it's safe to say that most fans of the series, especially with the release of the movie, have him pinned as one of their favorite characters. Despite the short amount of time we have with him, he has left such a lasting impact on me that I personally can't help but view him as the heart and soul of the series. Now, let's talk about why. Amongst the massive amount of media that I consume, I've come to recognize Rengoku as one of the most narratively impactful characters in any story. What's even more impressive about this is that he is a self-contained character, being truly introduced for the first time in the Mugen Train arc, and then ultimately dying in that very same arc. So, what makes him so impactful? Now, when I say impactful, I mean that in two different ways. His impact on us as the audience, and his impact on this series. So, to truly understand how he has an impact on us, I'd like to first recognize one of the things that Demon Slayer does an excellent job of handling: backstories. Demon Slayer does a great job of providing us with an array of vastly different characters with personalities that are stretched to such extremes that they are undeniably distinct from one another. From the gentle and soft-spoken Makomo to the flamboyantly audacious Tengen, each person's character design, manner of speaking, and even vocabulary set them apart. As unique and extraordinary as these characters are, they really are just the extremes of a certain personality. None of the major characters in Demon Slayer are really all that complex. Everyone's pretty one-dimensional. But that one-dimensional approach to their designs is supported by backstories that perfectly explain why they are the way they are. Demon Slayer's usage of backstories is a really great example of how they can be used to push the story forward. For most characters, their backstories can be narrowed down to why they became a demon slayer or demon, or their experiences as a demon slayer or demon. And even though the backstories themselves are about the individual, when and what is contributed from them are used to add to the overall narrative. One way they are used is to provide us a further understanding of a character different from the person having the backstory. One example of this is the Hand Demon, who is the first real backstory we are given, if you exclude the first episode as Tanjiro's technical backstory. The vengeful Hand Demon, who had been shown to cruelly target the students of Urokodaki and kill them unrelentingly. After his defeat to Tanjiro, he immediately expects Tanjiro to look down upon him in disdain. Instead, however, Tanjiro met him with eyes full of compassion, which triggered his memory, rather his backstory, of a time when his brother would hold his hand when he was scared. Tanjiro recognized the demon's sadness and unknowingly replicated the act of his brother, grabbing his hand and praying for him. This reinforced Tanjiro's kind nature in being able to have empathy for a demon that not only tried to kill him, but has killed people he knows. On Tanjiro's first mission, the Swamp Demon has a short flashback as he's being questioned about Muzan, giving us our first glimpse into his nature. The flashback shows us Muzan threatening the demon, holding him aloft by the throat. This memory and the sheer thought of what the consequences would be if he defied him frightened the demon so much that it shocked him to his bones, rather choosing to die fighting than risk this. Muzan's evil nature is introduced through this backstory, showing us his tyrannical ruling over his demons, and even proven true later on in Susamaru's death, being cursed and killed just for accidentally saying Muzan's name. Another way backstories are used is when they are given during critical moments and interrupting the action. This provides us with a rhythm to the story, preventing stints of tiringly long action sequences, or boring us with long exposition, allowing each of those things to be more effective. These breaks in action accomplish two things. One, they can change our perspective on the character, and two, they add more to the character's stakes, which justify where a sudden burst of power or determination comes from. Tengen, and actually all of the Hashira, are introduced first as hostile towards Tanjiro, and his relationship with Tanjiro is particularly negative at first. Tengen is extremely bossy and self-absorbed, and this continues throughout their whole investigation. But once the fighting starts, we are given the flashbacks with his wives, informing us he prioritizes their lives above all else. This explains why he was so adamant about finding them as soon as possible. This changes our perception of him from a jerk into a selfless character, enabling us to root for him in the coming fight. On the other hand, when the spider demon daughter is running away, we're given flashbacks of her experiences with Rui under his cruel imprisonment as his pretend family. This helps us to understand her compliance of his torture and abuse, as well as her desperation and fear of messing up. And lastly, backstories of certain characters are withheld and only sprinkled in here and there to add to the mystery of a character. Hand in hand with that, they're not fully provided because their backstory doesn't contribute to the narrative at this time. We first get a glimpse of Inosuke's past in his near-death experience, and we learn that even he doesn't know of his origins. This leaves us in intrigue as to what exactly it could be. A really great example of this is Rokodaki. Who is this old man who is so capable that he can train Tanjiro? Where did he get so strong? We never knew he was the former water Hashira until his letter was read at Tanjiro's trial. In training Tanjiro, it didn't matter that he was a Hashira, not that we even knew what those were at that point, but it mattered at the trial to add the weight of two Hashiras defending Tanjiro. So with all of that being said, we can now shift our focus back to Rengoku. What about him and how his backstory is presented makes him stick out compared to everyone else? Rengoku's backstory is first introduced to us when he's still trapped in his dream. Like basically all other backstories so far, it's sad. We witness his now turned pessimistic father and the effect that has on his younger brother Senjuro. Layered onto this, we learn that their mother had passed away from a sickness. But we don't hear of the effect that her death has on Rengoku. It ends with him defying that negativity, rising above it, and earnestly cheering on Senjuro and proclaiming that he will never be disheartened as the recently titled Flame Hashira. By all means, it's sad. Just because Rengoku remains enthusiastic doesn't take away from the sadness and loss his family is going through. The next we see of him is him stopping the girl who has infiltrated his dreams in order to destroy his spiritual core. And he manages to stop her based on instinct alone. But he doesn't stop her because of her intent. He doesn't stop her in order to pursue the demon. He, by all means, is still stuck in this trap. But he managed to stop her specifically because he needed to preserve his ability to fight. So, something about his determination is focused on making sure he is still physically capable. And then there is the encounter with Akaza. Akaza challenges Rengoku, not just physically, but he challenges his morals, his integrity as both a demon slayer and as a human. Akaza offers Rengoku the choice of becoming a demon based on the fact that he is strong, and states that everyone else there is weak. Without hesitation, Rengoku denies him, and then is able to refute Akaza's claims of human weakness, stating that the limited time that a person has is what makes life precious, and that their strength isn't defined by physical strength alone, even defending Tanjiro and claiming he is strong. This response, while noble, also kind of comes out of nowhere. This question of choosing to become a demon has never been posed before, and Rengoku counteracts it with an answer that he seemingly already had, even surprising Tanjiro with it. This response leaves us in wonder how he's come to this stance, and acts as a precursor to Rengoku's next flashback. It proceeds to them fighting, and despite the valiant effort Rengoku puts in, Akaza gains the upper hand. But the reason he gets the upper hand isn't due to Rengoku being outclassed. It's because of the reasons that Akaza finds humans weak. He is wounded and cannot heal himself in the same way a demon can. Rengoku decides to put it all on the line, proclaiming that he will fulfill his duty and won't let anybody die. He uses the final flame-breathing form that his very family is named after, to which Akaza found utterly splendid, and affirms to himself that Rengoku absolutely must become a demon. After the dust settles, in this contest of strength, Rengoku lost. Akaza has struck a fatal blow on Rengoku. This is a critical moment. In their battle of morals, Akaza had obtained the upper hand by winning the physical fight. And now, Akaza has the opportunity to get Rengoku to turn back on his convictions. Akaza once again extends the offer of becoming a demon. He reaches out to Rengoku one last time, proclaiming he is one of the strong ones who are chosen. For Rengoku, the part of him that first defied Akaza has lost. And now he needs something more to will his spirit to continue to defy Akaza. To oppose him just because of his earlier sentiment would feel almost stubborn, futile even. In response to this, Rengoku has a flashback to a second part of his backstory. And this time, we see him with his mother. In an incredibly emotional scene, she defines for him why he was born strong, or in other words, a chosen one. She not only informs him of his duty, his obligation to protect the weak, but she entrusts him with it, with the understanding that she will soon pass away. She embraces him, thanking him for the blessing to have been the mother of a strong, gentle child. This memory further ignites Rengoku's will, inspiring him to continue fighting and defy Akaza. He cannot let his mother down. He musters the strength to not only strike Akaza, but to also stop an attack with his bare hand. All the while, he is still being pierced in his solar plexus. Eventually, Akaza successfully retreats, and after Rengoku speaks his emotional final words with Tanjiro, we witness a short conversation he has with his mother. His duty has been fulfilled, and he is able to die with a smile on his face and without regret. Rengoku's story is incredibly touching. As the audience, we are able to connect to him on a deeper level than anybody else in the series thus far, arguably even more so than Tanjiro. And what accomplished this for us isn't just his actions and the marvel of his ability, it's his backstory. So let's review how it's used and what that accomplishes. It is first introduced to us as sad origins, with his family's circumstances. We initially root for him because he is trying to rise above his family's negative circumstances and be a positive influence on his brother despite it. As the situation becomes more dire, we are given a second part with his perspective with his mother as a twist. This second part redefines the circumstances of his past and why he is able to move forward. His backstory is redeemed by the memory of his mother, and he is the first character that we see that has gotten stronger not in spite of his backstory, but in honor of it. We had already been rooting for him, but because this memory comes at a moment where he has all but lost, we are filled with both awe and understanding where his final burst of strength come from. It fills us with hope that he can actually kill Akaza, while at the same time endearing him to us so that we can be sorrowful in his death. The second memory is really what defines how we view him. I believe that one of the reasons that we can more easily relate to him as viewers is because the backstory reveals his motivations aren't tied specifically to killing demons. Tanjiro's hatred towards Muzan is tied to Muzan's evil and cruel nature. Alongside that is the very important factor, the driving factor of trying to change Nezuko back into a human. Yet, while we are rooting for Tanjiro, his journey isn't relatable to us normal people. For Rengoku, there is no revenge. There is no specific hatred towards Muzan. It is the memory of a young boy wanting to live up to the expectations of his dear mother that was taken away from him at a young age. It's the memory of a boy being embraced by his mother. It's the memory of his mother's love. And this is what connects to us as the audience on a deeper level than any other character. And on top of that, it justifies and explains everything Rengoku has said and accomplished leading up to this point. His ideals of why he views humans as strong and why their fleeting life is beautiful is supported by the fact that he has experienced this beauty in his mother, and how he has grown and remained strong as she entrusted him with his duties. We understand why he is so positively eccentric all the time. His ability to stop the girl from destroying his spiritual core is justified, because he would have been left unable to fulfill his duty, his driving motivation. Even as he's bleeding out, Tanjiro is still able to declare him as the victor of the battle. And with his bittersweet death approaching, he still fulfilled his duty, and nobody else died. His mother even confirms that he has. He was able to die with a smile on his face, without regret, and being able to witness that fulfillment is what leaves an impact with us. Rengoku's death, still, it leaves me in tears whenever I rewatch it. The impact it has on me pulls on my heartstrings every single time without fail. Now, let's shift gears from his impact on us as the audience and talk about what Rengoku's death means for the series. Rengoku's death is a critical turning point for the series for many different reasons. One of the obvious things to point out is the appearance of Akaza. There has been a lot of lead up to his appearance. The 12 Kizuki are important characters in Tanjiro's journey, because he has to collect their blood in order to help Nezuko become human again. Ever since they were first mentioned in the Asakusa arc, every demon that Tanjiro has fought has had some relation to the 12 Kizuki. We saw, just before the Mugen Train arc began, Muzan abolished the lower moons altogether. They have failed time and time again to kill a Hashira, whereas the upper moons have remained unchanged for over a century and successfully killed multiple Hashira in the past. Lower Moon 1 reminds us of this in his dying thoughts, just before Akaza arrives. And Rengoku struggles in this fight. We have never seen a Hashira struggle before. In fact, we've never seen a Hashira fight full out before. Neither Gyu or Shinobu struggled against their demons. So, in their clash, Akaza proved that the upper moons can not only put up a fight against the Hashira, they indeed can kill them. In the anime, Ubayashiki states that this group of Hashira are the finest group that has ever been assembled. And yet, Rengoku dies. Which poses the question, just how strong are the upper moons? Akaza was only upper moon 3. So how strong are upper moons 1 and 2? Are upper moons 4, 5, and 6 just as strong? Granted, he's a side character, Rengoku is also the first good guy to die. So this opens the door of more potential deaths. Nobody's life is safe anymore. His death makes scenes like Inosuke getting stabbed in the heart by Gyutaro and Tengen being collapsed on the ground and having lost an arm believable. regardless of it being a shonen anime. And what I think is one of the more important things that isn't explicitly stated is that his death sets limitations on the strength of the Hashira. They are not all powerful humans that can defeat the upper moons easily, if at all. And what more, Rengoku's strength is the very same strength that Tanjiro sought out to achieve. He wanted to defeat the 12 Kizuki like the Hashiras could. So, if Rengoku couldn't, can Tanjiro? That question acts as a good precursor to the last point I wanted to make. Rengoku, because he died, now can act as a comparison point to the growth of Tanjiro. In his final words, Rengoku entrusts Tanjiro with the same will of protecting the weak that Rengoku had. And, man, I love Rengoku's final words. Not only because it's so emotionally charged, but because it beautifully concludes his character, while at the same time sets up and changes Tanjiro forever. I'd like to make a whole different video about his final words and the relationship between Rengoku and Tanjiro at some point. You can directly compare the two, and the differences they have from each other are beautiful. I'd even made a point of not mentioning Set Your Heart Ablaze so far, which is the motto that inspired me to make this video in the first place. It so perfectly encapsulates one of the major themes of self-sacrifice that has been present ever since the beginning of the series that it deserves its own video. So, to wrap it all up, Rengoku's death is a critical turning point in the series, and his impact on all of the characters, especially Tanjiro, creates a shockwave that pushes him all the way to the very end of the series. His backstory and how it's utilized truly highlight his personality and get us to cheer for him wholeheartedly and feel the same pain that Tanjiro felt in his death. Despite how short it is, the time we do have with him endears us to him so greatly that he is still one of my personal favorites, not only in this series, but has become one of my favorite characters of all time. And that's the end of the video. To anyone who watched it all the way to this point, I genuinely hope you enjoyed it. This is my very first video essay I've ever made, and this project has been both thrilling and nerve-wracking to complete. I was inspired to make this as I'm a huge fan of literary and filmmaking analysis, and above all, I'm a massive fan of great storytelling. So, I wanted to share that with the world in a way I hoped would be found interesting, in the hopes that it would make your experiences with this series, as well as any other story you'll enjoy, even better. I've read the entirety of the series, but I wanted to make a video that would be friendly to those who are anime viewers exclusively, but I do have ideas for videos that use the entire series as well. The video is obviously not perfect, and I didn't put music in this one because I'm still so inexperienced with video making, and I'm worried about being claimed by the system, but regardless, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll stick around to see the next one. Thank you.